David Cornsett just nailed it as Superman in terms of being kind of innocent and good, not trying to be edgy. That was nice. Superman was refreshingly vulnerable.
You see Superman doing good, but it reveals our weakness, reveals our frailty, and then it's like, well, I don't like that. You're shining a light in the dark under a rock and seeing all the cockroaches fly. Superman's the light. We're the cockroaches just flying away.
All the people who think Zack Snyder didn't get Superman, if this version gets it right, you've actually been fooled. This version looks like Superman, feels like Superman, but the core of what makes him unique has been ripped out right from under your nose. The super soul has been removed.
In a world where entertainment is viewed as mindless diversion, only good for momentary distraction, you are about to enter a new world, and you will never view entertainment in the same way again. This is Popcorn Theology.
Look, up in the sky, movie lovers, comic book aficionados, and theology nerds. It's not a bird, it's not a plane, it's Popcorn Theology, where we examine films for where they align with the greatest story and our greatest storyteller, discussing what to receive, reject, and redeem for common ground, fruitful conversation, and mindful movie consumption. I'm Lex Luthor's older brother.
And I'm Miles Mannered reporter.
And I'm Jamie Olsen. And we're looking at Superman today. Superman was directed by James Gunn. It stars David Cornsett, Rachel Bronzhanna, and Nicholas Hoult. Did I pronounce those right at all? Was I even
Probably
close?
not.
Holt in the name of the law. I don't know.
Holt, there it is.
Brosnahan and Holt, go on.
Yeah, and so just as if you were walking through comic book shelves and opened up right to the middle of a story, that's what this movie feels like. When Superman gets drawn into conflict at home and abroad, his actions are questioned by the media and the nations of the world. This gives tech billionaire Lex Luthor an opportunity to get the Man of Steel out of the way for good. So Clark Kent also has to deal with an unruly superdog and relationship issues with his girlfriend and confidant Lois Lane, but he'll need all their help because as well as the not officially named Justice Gang will need to band together to get through Luthor's games and everything that he has in store for them. He has to wrestle with a shocking revelation about his own origins and legacy.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun,
So
dun,
no
dun.
spoilers yet, but let's give our spoiler-free thoughts and our ratings here as we jump into things. As always, do we think Superman was stale? Do we think it was fresh? Or did we think it was so amazing and awesome it was like buttered and salted? If this were popcorn, what is it, Jam?
Yeah, it's butter and salted for me. I thought it was fun action sequences. You want to see Superman just beating stuff up. I loved seeing the humanity of Clark Kent, something that I think even the Man of Steel kind of missed out on a little bit. The Justice Gang was a highlight for me in the movie. I was always smiling when they came on. Lex Luthor is actually a believable villain in this movie for me. And what I liked about it in particular was the fact that the film had a familiar and a similar tone to that of like Peacemaker and Suicide Squad, which I felt was a really good area for DC. They're not trying to be Marvel, and with the tone they're setting, they don't need to be. So I love it. Butter and salted for me.
Well, for me, a borderline buttered and salted, a good test is whether I want to go back for more. And I went back the very next weekend. I got my dates wrong, and I thought that Fantastic Four came out this weekend. And I was like, I would rather go watch Superman again than go watch Fantastic Four because I was just excited to revisit it. And, I felt like people wanted me to dislike this. It was like Snyder-bros and all that kind of stuff. That's what the kind of what I felt from around me. But I just liked it.
Not to mention ignorant, uninformed conservatives. Funny do not like it.
Which is often my crew. It's often my crowd.
Yeah.
That's my
Oh,
film walking gang. And I think they gave in too much to outrage because it's just a pretty solid movie. It's good.
And rumors.
All the
rumors were completely untrue. But go on.
Like the Bible tells you to only entertain. It's got on the basis of 2 witnesses, right? And on the basis of no witnesses and like secondhand knowledge of interviews, I heard people say this is terrible. This is ideologically driven. Just wasn't that.
Hey man,
Solid
2 witnesses, tweet and retweet told me. So I guess it's true.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, it just felt like people wanted me to hate this, but it's good. It's well crafted. It's morally inspiring. It's fresh. It's fun. I have a few gripes. I'll list them out in a little bit, but the fun just simply outweighs them. And I felt like just in this movie, Superman liked to be Superman. Like, it made me want to like watching him be Superman. And that covers over a multitude of cinnamon sins for me. And so it's just buttered and salted. It's good.
Nice. Well, I will join you all with buttered and salted. Even repeat viewing, we went and saw it in 3D. It's I would say it's one of the rare movies that actually benefited.
You get to see the tooth flying at you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. This is the prototypical quote-unquote summer movie, right? This is the blockbuster. To me, I would liken it to the first Transformers movie or Godzilla vs. Kong or Independence Day. Like, this is just summer fun at the multiplex. This is you come out feeling good. As far as the whole Man of Steel, it's apples and oranges. Like, it's the apple to Man of Steel's orange. It's like if Man of Steel was Blade Runner, this movie is Star Wars. Like, the intended vibe is completely different, even though it's the same character. And the comic books have been to both ends of those spectrums over the decades. So I think anybody who can enjoy both, to me, has a problem. If you have a preference, that's fine, and we can talk about that later. But anyone who at least doesn't lightly enjoy this movie, I think, hates fun.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I've just, in the last 2 weeks, in retrospect, I've appreciated what was done with Man of Steel more because I've had this as a contrast in my head. It makes it all. I might be kind of alone in this or minority, but it makes me like all of it a little more for some reason because there's really stark differences in the themes that they played with, which we'll talk about.
Yeah, well, so speaking of themes, do we think is like a soda that we got going into the movie? Did it wind up being diluted for themes and theological talking points? Was it carbonated, or was our cup running over? Jam, what about you?
It was carbonated for me. I mean, there's one big theme in particular that stuck out to me, which I'll get to later. But a minor theme that comes to mind is fatherhood. And that whole dynamic between Clark and his dad. And of course, mom makes fun of him for being a softie. But the movie in general, it's carbonated because the one main theme that I'm thinking through is a pretty typical Superman theme. So watching it, I'm like, well, I've seen that in all the other Superman movies. I'd like a new theme, please. So that's why it's carbonated for me.
Okay, what about you, Miles?
Yeah, for me, carbonated, not quite cup runneth over. It wasn't even meaning to be pretty, like, with much depth. But even as Jam is talking about, it's a repeated theme. Part of the main point of this movie was trying to get back to at least the feel of watching Superman. And then if you play that against all of the rest of the iterations of Superman we had, there is fruit for cup running over kind of conversations. That depth is all over the place in terms of the contrast. So isolated, carbonated. Together, in terms of contributing to the symphony of Superman stories, it makes for a lot of conversation.
The John Williams symphony of Superman.
What's John Williams? I kept expecting to hear those deep tones from Man of Steel, but it would come out the other as like, yeah. And it was like, wow, these really are hitting the same beats, of course.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd agree with that. I think I'd say lightly carbonated, just taking the movie as in and of itself, with only a couple things to talk about. But you're right. They do bubble up and spill over in terms of the legacy of all of the mythos. When you almost can't not touch on it because it spills into all the other aspects of Superman we've seen before. But I can't talk about that till we get to theology section. So before we get to the movie, let's go ahead. I want to encourage everyone who's listening to like and share this episode with your friends. If you like what you hear, let's broaden the conversation. Do whatever you can. Hashtag super spiritual. If you want to hear more, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and Discord.
Yeah, and one quick way that you can help support the podcast is just to give a rate and a review. You could do it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening, or you can support us financially through Patreon.
Yep, and donating just a few dollars a month will make you part of our Popcorn Theology gang.
No, we're not calling ourselves that, man. Come on.
I liked it, James.
So it's
working. He can be in the gang. Well, you can. Patron Saints is what we're going with, and this gives you special access to a bunch of exclusive content, benefits including our Facebook group, a special channel on our Discord server, and you get to shape the future of Popcorn Theology by voting on episodes and sending us into the fray.
That's right. And be sure to jump over to our merch store for shirts, stickers, mugs, and more. And we will be back after the ads, and we'll be ready to go up, up, and away.
Up in the sky, look! It's a bird! It's a plane!
Cinemagogue, the marvelous era. James Harleman here, the cinema guy, announcing the sequel to my first book on film and faith. Let's face it, entertainment has changed dramatically since the first book published in 2012, and comic book characters and franchises are everywhere. So I decided to set my sights on superheroes and examine the evolution of Hollywood in this follow-up to the first Cinemagogue book. For example, what does Loki tell us about culture's view of God? Why does the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the Infinity Saga continually align with biblical themes? In the Marvelous era, I review each film and show not only how the individual movies express gospel parallels, but each phase essentially reveals a multi-point sermon. I also explore DC, Star Wars, the Monsterverse, and more. Without compromising scriptural truth, we can sift these stories and discover how we might reject, receive, and redeem ideas for personal reflection and Christian conversation. Also, has Hollywood's messaging gotten worse? The book explores ways these marvelous mythologies correspond with conversion, Christian living, church history, and reformation, but I do also highlight what has been the entertainment industry's darker, indoctrinating decade, as well as toxic fandom and the dangers of immersion in pop culture that just might drown us spiritually if we're not careful. So suit up, assemble, and join me on a journey to the Infinity Saga and beyond. Cinemagogue, the Marvel Us era. Now available on Amazon.com in paperback, hardcover, and Kindle editions.
Hey, this is David, and if you're listening to Popcorn Theology, it's probably because you're interested in theology or movies, or best of all, both. And that means that you're our kind of people, sharing common interests with our listeners and viewers as well. So why not partner with us and advertise your business or ministry right here on Popcorn Theology? We're looking for great, like-minded sponsors and offer reasonable rates with a variety of formats to get your message out. Remember, our fans aren't mindless consumers, so they'll give you thoughtful consideration. That's a big part of what we're all about here. So, for more information on advertising with us, contact feedback@popcorntheology.com.
And we're back. Faster than a speeding bullet and dropping the spoiler warning. So, spoilers, guys. We're going to get into everything about this movie and dig deeper into Superman. You guys realize it's the first time that's actually been the title?
That's it, yeah.
Superman the movie.
Yep,
Back
Superman
in the first
the movie. And then Superman 2, 3, 4, then Man of Steel. So there's never just been a movie called Superman. I kind of wondered why he took the legacy title off of it. And now it makes sense. This is the first time we've actually just had a movie named Superman.
Wow. Yeah.
So here we go. Time for the popcorn thoughts. As we pop that, I'll ask you guys, what did you think? Jam, you thought it was buttered and salted. So what were things you liked, didn't like? What were the standout moments? All that good stuff.
Yeah. I like the suit. I was actually never a fan of Cavill's Superman suit. And I know you're saying they're apples and oranges, but it's hard not to watch this Superman movie. There it is. It's hard not to watch this Superman movie with Henry Cavill, considering, I mean, he was Superman for as long as he was just before this movie. So it's hard not to compare him, but I didn't like Cavill's suit. It was too dark. This suit screamed hope for me. And that's what I think of when I think of Superman. It's that character of hope. I thought the action was fun.
Jam, it's the S that means hope.
Yeah, well.
Sorry.
Well, it's fun. You know, I like the Cavill suit had a ton of meaning, but you know what's fun? The reason why I like the suit, if you talk about David Cornsweet, he actually contributed to, they were trying to figure out how do we justify the trunks. And David Cornsweet said, well, you know, he's an alien who's the most powerful being, most intimidating being in the world. Maybe it's supposed to look a little silly so that kids will approach him. And that wasn't in the movie. It was just lore that they invented on the outside. And I thought, it warms my heart. I love it so much.
Lore they invented on the outside, like the underwear on the outside.
Like the underwear on the outside. Yeah.
Now, the action was a lot of fun, even down to the saving the squirrel from getting crushed. Like,
yes,
that's Superman. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed Superman having trouble with fighting and getting beat and those kinds of things. It was good to see he's not this invincible man who can't work up a sweat. And so I enjoyed that aspect of the film. The characters had room to breathe in this as well. I think, honestly, it seldom happens for me with Superman, at least. You think of Batman versus Superman, the whole Martha scene, which I argue is probably the worst cinema scene ever. I hate that scene.
I like it.
I hate it. I
like
it.
I like the idea of it. I don't like the execution.
It was not executed well. I get the idea. It's like he says Martha, Bruce's mom was Martha, and it's like it's supposed to humanize him a little bit, and that's supposed to be the moment that Batman gets, oh, he's a human being kind of thing. It didn't work for me. And this, though, having Clark getting into conflict with the woman he loves, that humanizes him. And this having him not be the best at his job, even though he's the strongest guy on the entire planet, that humanizes him. Like they give the characters room to breathe. Also, another thing I'd point out is you actually have Superman and Lois working together in this movie, as in like a couple. It works for them to be a couple in this movie compared to other iterations where it's just like, well, in the comics they're together, so they must be together in this movie. And this, you actually see them fighting to be together. That humanizes the characters. So I love that aspect. It stands up on its own too. I kind of mentioned this with the tone earlier. It stands on its own. I love the interwoven storytelling of the MCU. At least I did before Secret Wars and Captain Marvel, Eternals, all the other flops. I love that interwoven, like you want to watch this one and this one to understand everything going on. In this, it stands on its own. It's not trying to set up this whole cinematic universe, but it's already established in the cinematic universe. It feels like Peacemaker. And so that tone is consistent enough to say, okay, it's in its own universe. And it fixes the Marvel villain problem of like the Marvel villain falls flat. He's not interesting. He's supposed to be this big threat, but he's really not a big threat. And this, the entire movie, Lex is a threat. And you know he's a threat. Even down to the very end, he's still a threat. They didn't kill him off. You know he's going to come back. I enjoyed that.
I think the Marvel villain problem is a little overhyped myself, but
they did better towards the end.
Did you write an entire book assessing the Marvelous era?
There you go. Yeah, that's true.
What
about you, Miles?
I'll insert myself. Yeah, I thought this was, borderline buttered and salted. Good on a second tasting. I was excited to go in the first time. I was excited to go in the second time. I came out happy both times. And just, I don't always judge a movie based on how it makes you feel, but this one, it gets a lot of points in that way. And David Cornsett just nailed it as Superman in terms of being kind of innocent and good. The word good. It's not well defined in the movie, but it is championed in the movie. Mm-hmm. One of the first lines he says is "golly" as he stumbles out of the chair when he's being healed, and he's talking to Krypto. What the hey, dude? And he's cool. Like with a little bit of hope, like not cool, but not trying to be edgy. That was nice. Superman was refreshingly vulnerable, like Jam was talking about. Human. That's why this movie is going to make hundreds of millions of dollars, because while the other ones are really cool. I mean, there's a lot of people who don't like this movie because they're like, look how difficult things were for him. But you're like, that's what makes him connect.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that's another BS kind of thing too, because the only thing it's the first time it says that he's ever been beaten.
Yeah.
And it's only because it's himself.
And in the
you just don't find that out till near the end. So all the people go, he just gets beat up all the time. Yeah, that's because he's fighting a clone of himself.
Yep. And there was never a point in the movie where he was at full strength. So he's at 86% or whatever when he gets recharged. Yeah. And the rest of the movie, he's taken beatings. And then you see at the very end of the movie, after he's done away with Ultraman, I mean, he thrashes everybody after that. Mm-hmm. Spinning around, blasting them. And you're like, oh, that's great. And the world building, I've heard people complain, this movie just feels like it's only meant to set up all this world. That didn't feel like it to me. I like that they said 300 years of superheroes. How interesting is that? I don't even know what they're going to do with that. But that means that when Superman comes on the scene, it's not like Man of Steel where they are reacting to the idea of superheroes, of metahumans. Yeah. But they are reacting to him as an alien and as the most powerful person in the world. You're like, that's really interesting. And wrestling with it. What do we do with this guy who's almost a dork in the sense that he's a hopeful Boy Scout trying to do good? And can we trust him? Because if he doesn't, we're all in trouble. That's some good stuff. It made me appreciate Man of Steel more in retrospect. So the Kryptonian backstory in Man of Steel, they tried to justify everything that we know about Superman and explain it. And they did a really interesting job in Man of Steel. Really did. And so, like, in retrospect, I've been watching Batman and Superman a little bit here and there throughout this week. And this version actually helps me appreciate some of the things they were saying in those movies, even though this movie wipes all of that off the table.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to
all of it. We'll get to it. One thing about it is it felt like being thrown into a comic book. So everyone in this movie felt like a cartoon to me, except for Lois Lane. So I think you're supposed to relate to Superman and Lois Lane, and then everything else is kind of window dressing in this movie. And then it's a fun thing about my journey with Krypto. I thought, Krypto's cute, but most of the movie I was kind of disappointed. I was like, did Clark Kent grow up with Krypto and didn't train him? I was like, that's kind of a. And then when it turns out that he's dog sitting, I'm like, he's redeemed again.
Yeah, because he even drops to Lois. It's kind of a foster situation. What does that mean? And everything kind of pays off. The little things like that all pay off by the end. Yeah,
because I was actually disappointed. I was like, if he grew up with a dog, he probably would love that dog and it would be really loyal to him. And then that also, when he sacrifices himself for a dog, it's not even his dog. It's not even a good dog. What a hero. He's saving a dog that's not even good. He's saving a baby that's not even his. He's saving people that don't like him. He's saving a squirrel. It's totally inconvenient, but he's just loving people. So that's wonderful. My gripes, I'll fire some of them off. First one, in retrospect, he didn't save Lois one time in this movie. It's a pretty long
That's true.
movie.
I didn't
Yes,
even think about that till you mentioned it. I
Didn't
didn't even think
savor
about it.
at all. And you know what? Lois is a great character to justify her being saved by the hero of the story, because she's always diving straight in at the truth, and the world that loves lies is being attacked by Lois, and they try to kill her, and Superman steps in. But yeah, I mean, I can give that away, but it's just, well, that's different. He didn't save her.
I guess he doesn't save her in every issue of the comic, but he has saved her in previous issues. Maybe I just assumed he had in the past. Like,
Yeah, you're
probably.
supposed to.
It would be
supposed
like it'd be like watching a Spider-Man movie with Kirsten Dunst not being saved. Like that. That's just not a Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire. It's just like you can't do
strange
that.
to me.
But no, I didn't pick up on that either. Actually,
One thing that's kind of off-putting to me, I didn't really like the Jimmy Olsen subplot where all the women are after him. Like, it's funny, but it's like, it's only funny because everybody knows that doesn't happen.
it doesn't happen. Yeah. Well, the actor who played Jimmy Olsen, I don't know his name, but he apparently thought that he was being called to interview for Superman.
That's fun.
And then when he got called back, he thought that he had gotten the role for Superman. And then he made a comment about, like, you really want me to play Superman? And the comment was like, no, you're not playing Superman. You're Jimmy Olsen.
Nicholas Hoult went read for Superman too.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Even though he's perfect. One thing I thought was kind of the monkey bot farm, farming all this outrage. I was like, they really missed an opportunity at that. It should have just been real people saying horrible stuff, because this movie shows a mirror to the audience. And I think it should have been just like, look how cruel we are to people who often don't deserve it. I just thought it was a missed opportunity. I didn't like drunk Supergirl at the end, or hungover Supergirl. I was like, that makes me immediately not very interested in their movie. I kind of wondered why Lex didn't just kill Superman at the beginning when Ultraman was wiping the floor with him.
I think that's why he escaped back to the fortress, right?
Yeah, but how did he do it? Anyway,
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that. And then really a big one for me, it was a key plot point, but in the movie, I was like, how did Lex and the engineer decipher Kryptonian message in a few minutes, maybe a few hours, that Clark spent his whole life trying to figure out, and he had Kryptonian robots around with him? And I was like, I like it for the plot that he had to have the surprise reveal, but it was hard for me to buy that they found this message. I guess it had to be, but it was just hard for me.
I think that's them trying to elevate Lex's cred as a scientist. Like, because he's created a pocket universe. Like, could even Kryptonians do that? Like he's almost, maybe he's a step above. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe that's just me trying to fill the plot hole. I don't know.
For me to try to answer it, I was like, well, we had the engineer who, her hatred for the vulnerability she feels to live underneath Superman. She says she gave away her humanity to try to stop it. And so it's like, you lose a piece of yourself, maybe you'll gain something. So it's like kind of a Darth Vader-y type of thing. Yep. I was trying to justify it, but really I was like, it's kind of dumb, but it works for me. Again, the movie's so fun that I don't care as much. I just want to say these are my gripes. And I'll pass it on to you. Pass the popcorn bucket over to James.
Well, first of all, it didn't try to be a message movie. Right? I mean, that made me very happy. There was all the rumors up front that he's going to change truth, justice, and not say the American way. That didn't even come up. It wasn't woke. It wasn't political. Even some major voices like Ben Shapiro and The Critical Drinker have settled it. They're like, no, it wasn't. Like, why are people saying this? So, like, if you want to say, I get it. If you want to read any movie, because this is what we do for Popcorn Theology. If we want to read into between the lines and say, well, hey, look at this parallel and look at this could equal this message. That's fine if you want to do that, but that's a good story that's not preachy. Half the stuff I heard online was woke, didn't even turn up. So, just give it a rest. If you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. Also, the notion that some people have complained about that it's not Superman's movie is ridiculous. They're like, oh, it's a Justice League movie. Even Dean Cain was kind of trashing it a little bit. And it's like, Superman's almost in every sequence except the Mr. Terrific fight. And usually when the other people are on screen, it's to see how he interacts differently with those types of people. Yep. So it's still all about Superman.
All of those other characters.
It never felt like a team movie at all.
Precisely. Mm-hmm. All those characters are interesting because they cuss, Superman doesn't. They kill, he doesn't. Superman's loyal to his friends. They question because it's inconvenient to help out his friends when Lois is challenging. All of them are foils for Superman, and they fit,
And we only apply this crap to superhero movies, too. Think about it. It's like Michael Corleone wasn't in every scene in The Godfather, and we didn't say, he wasn't the main character. It was just a team movie. There could be a central character, and they're not in every scene, and other characters do get cool fights. It's a ridiculous thing that I think somehow just creeps into superhero movie expectations. Yeah. But as far as adapting, here's what I loved. As far as adapting something from another medium, I might say this is the most a comic book movie has ever felt like opening up an issue of a comic book. Because let's face it, did any of you start with Action Comics #1?
Nope.
Or even Superman #1? Right? If we ever opened up Superman, even a Spider-Man comic, I started reading it in the 80s. So the first one I picked up, it was like a lot had already happened in his life. I was coming in on some sequence of events. He'd already like, oh no, he'd just broken up with Mary Jane, or like there's like something had already happened when I went in. It was almost like joining a soap opera in season 5. And that's what this feels like, right? That some people compared it to A New Hope. Like, Star Wars starts with the Skrull, and now you just jump in. You're being pursued by the Empire's sinister agents. Like, if you were like me and you grew up without prequels, like the first movie was part 4, and this kind of feels like I'm jumping into issue number 4. And they dodge the origin and the rinse repeat, just like the Batman did in 2022. All very good ideas. I love what they've done with the Batman, and I love what they've done now with Superman. And you already pointed out, it feels like Gunn's established universe, so it's going to fit everything that comes next. And I want to say, most of all, one thing that I liked, for better or worse, some people use the term pastiche, and they use it kind of as a derogatory term, but I feel like this movie really was a pastiche. I think that's a synonym for derivative, but a pastiche is a work of art that imitates the style of other works, but often in a way that pays homage to it rather than mocking it. Like, it's a blend of different styles and elements, and this feels like they cooked up a Superman with ingredients from all of the other versions of Superman. Yeah. And all of them felt like there was just bits and bobs borrowed from like the 78 movie. You had the Crystal Fortress, which was the Crystal Fortress came from the 78 movie. Miss Tessmacher, the idea that Luthor's after a land grab. Did you even notice the one guy's name was Otis? And in
Otis.
The credits, his name is Otis Berg.
Awesome.
Otis Berg.
I didn't see that.
Straight out, Luthor, I felt like was the fact that Luthor is a business tycoon is something that came out of the post-crisis 80s comics done by John Byrne when they rebooted Superman in the 80s. But then also that carried over into the way they treated him in the animated series. And Lois seemed like she was totally out of Superman the animated series. Like there was even a point where she was wearing like a shirt and skirt that looked just like Lois did in the animated series. Jam and I were talking earlier too. They went with Luthor Corps instead of Lex Corps, which is a nod to Smallville. And Luthor himself is actually he wasn't really like Clancy Brown's animated Luthor. He was more like Grant Morrison's science tech genius when they did another reboot in the aughts, the New 52 DC Comics. They took Lex back away from kind of some of the tycoon stuff and focused more on him being a science genius. And of course, here with the Pocket Universe, he's done that. So if I had a quibble, I might say it felt more like a love letter to all things Superman rather than feeling like a Superman film. So I might differ a little. You were talking, Jam, about how you felt like it felt self-contained. And I feel like if there's not more, it doesn't feel complete to me. But that kind of brings into question, I think, even what we think a film is. Right? I think it challenges the idea of what is a film. I think the franchise model itself kind of has poked holes in our definition. To me, like a film feels like it should be something complete. Man of Steel, to me, felt like a film. And this felt like a comic book issue in a series.
But you know what's interesting about the stakes of this movie? I mean, you already have Ultraman the clone and a pocket universe and like a world-splitting device by Lex. I didn't feel like they were pulling their punches in terms of spectacle. I was like, where do you actually go from here from a Superman movie? Maybe things like Brainiac, but I was like, I was surprised that they went that far in terms of the things that he faced. I was like, thank you. It didn't actually feel to me. It felt the opposite to me, like they were saving things for later for him. I felt like they threw the kitchen sink at him.
You know that clone's coming back as Bizarro, right? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Come on. Got to. But
yeah.
Well, and it opens the door for Connor Kent too, because there was a statement that Lex makes about not having the brains essentially that he needed. And he has the bronze of Superman, but he doesn't have the brains of Lex. And then you get into Connor Kent, which is quite literally the son of Luthor and then the brother of Kent and Clark Kent. So even that is like they're opening up a potential for Superboy to come in.
That's nice.
That's fun.
And like you guys said, I love that he saved everyone, including the squirrel. I think the scene that really choked me up, still both times, is when he tells Lois, I'm going to turn myself in. Maybe they'll take me wherever they took the dog. Yeah. And she's like, it's just a dog. And he says, I know. He's not even a very good one, but he's alone, probably scared. It's like, man, that was quintessentially Superman right there. That's a quintessential moment of captured. This is the guy who will do that. Or when they were fighting the we also had a movie where Superman fought Stitch, which is kind of funny. Considering Stitch right now is a Goliath at the box office. Come on, tell me that wasn't Stitch when they took him out of the cart.
Oh, 100%.
The box.
Well, and it's just
100%.
Yeah, and it's I agree. Superman sacrifices himself for Krypto while he's just figured out the world hates him and that his whole reason for being has been shuttered, and he's still not thinking about himself.
Yeah.
It's like that is just refreshing. It's just great. That'll preach,
Or with the not Stitch, right? Unlike all the other Justice Gang.
Oh, there's got to be another way.
He's like, I thought we'd take him to a zoo or to an intergalactic zoo, or we could
Study
do
him.
something else.
Mr. Terrific, come on, man.
Come on, man. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great, and that carries so far, and people are eating it up in a world with Homelander and Omni-Man, all that stuff. They're eating it up because they're a little bit tired.
Yeah. Two things that maybe if I wanted to quibble. The Proton stream fight went on way too long. Like when he's holding the baby, and it was almost kind of hard even to see what was going on.
You know what it felt like? It felt like the barrels in The Hobbit.
Yep.
Nice.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it was like, that could have been 10 seconds, and it was like 6 times that long. It's like, I didn't need a whole minute of him just rolling around in it and punch. And like, I get it. They sort of drug that out. That was also probably the poorest CGI.
Yes.
And so I was like,
didn't Mr. Terrific say that if you were to go into that, you would be ripped apart? But then you see, like, he's in that with the Lex bots or whatever they were, and none of them are being ripped apart. Like, you don't expect Superman to be ripped apart, but you could have shortened that sequence because they already established if you get in that, it would rip them apart. You could have shortened the sequence because when they go in there, those Lex bots, they should have just been ripped apart. And then Superman comes out, no big deal.
Yeah. But the thing is great. What's he doing in there? He's saving a baby. That's Superman. He's holding the baby up, right? As he's like drowning.
Right. So to have him fall in, but keep his arm up and keep it up, that was a neat idea. And then they just barreled him. I like we're going to call it. They barreled it. There you go. Yep. Now, from a popcorn perspective, the other thing that I thought was just fine was the Kryptonian reveal and the big twist. Like from a popcorn movie perspective, I thought that was cool as a comic book kind of idea. Nice. But what it does to the uniqueness of the character from a theological parallel, and actually what makes him unique amidst all other superheroes. Let's just say for all the people who rip on Man of Steel and are so happy now that we have a quote-unquote true Superman finally, I'm going to prove you 100% wrong later. So on that note, let's pour some soda.
Let's do it.
And get into the theology of this stuff.
Me first.
That's right. And so we're gonna sample the more spiritual aspects of this film now and its narrative. So Superman, what are the deep themes that kind of stood out to us?
Well, to take just some of the most low-hanging fruit I've seen in a movie in a long time. The core theme of this movie, I think, from James Gunn himself, is just that goodness, kindness, and hope are punk rock.
Yes.
Right? It's just, I've got the song from the credits stuck in my head. There's this scene. So Lois and Clark, they've been fighting. And Lois comes to him after the big reveal that his parents sent him here to conquer and rule and really oppress. And Lois is talking about their relational differences. And she says, we're so different. I was just a punk rock kid from Bakerline and you're Superman. And he's like, I'm punk rock. You're not punk rock. And Lois says, my point is I question everyone and everything. You trust everyone and think everyone you meet is like beautiful. And then the key line of the movie, Superman says, maybe that's the real punk rock. That is the theme of the movie. It's the clearest message that's preached. The end credit song is meant to call back to that. I'm a punk rocker. Yes, I am. That's an ironic movie because it's the ironic song because it's not punk rock and it fits him. It's just wonderful. And if you think about what is punk rock, so punk rock music, I've known a few punk rockers. They're typically some of the nicest people you've ever met. But they're totally into their music that inspires anti-establishment, anti-authoritarian, anti-conformity. That's what it's trying to inspire. And so this movie is, what is really anti our culture? And the message of this movie is that our culture is so cynical, edgy, proud, rude, mistrusting, that to be a real rebel, to be punk rock in our society means embracing hope, sincerity, humility, kindness, and then just above all, goodness, trying to be good. And you know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like pretty much our favorite popcorn theology verse, Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, his pleasing, his perfect will. So it's the Bible and this movie are both saying, you know what nonconformity to the world looks like? It means not giving in to cynicism and selfishness. You know what nonconformity looks like? It means seeking after goodness, trying to figure out what God's goodness is. And it's Romans 12, by the way. There's 11 chapters of theology that's all about human being, life under the sun, our need for Jesus, and how that's the fulfillment of the Old Testament story. was like, what story are you in? And then now, therefore, is Romans 12:1. In view of God's mercies, offer yourself as a living sacrifice. What does it mean to worship? It's to be punk rock in the sense of Superman. It's to not conform. It's so cool. And so this line, Superman says, I wake up every morning and despite not knowing what to do, I put one foot on in front of the other and I try to make the best choices I can. I screw up all the time, but that is being human and that's my greatest strength. And someday, I hope for the sake of the world, Lex Luthor, understand that it's yours too. It's like, that's punk rock. And so what did you guys think? I mean, it was on the nose in this movie wonderfully.
James, you want me to go?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm just leaving this one up because I got more.
The idea of being good and kind and having hope is punk rock. I think you're getting at it. Playing particularly in music in general, there's always a running joke with my band. They'll always say I am the least metal out of the entire band, which is funny because I'm the guy getting up there screaming. But there's a notion within music genres of this is metal or this is punk rock.
This metal.
And I think you're getting at the heart of even just those genres. And I always have the hardest time with that. And that's why I don't dress like I'm metal, but to like be punk rock, you got to dress like you're punk rock. I don't dress like I'm metal. We just played a show on Saturday actually. And I was trying to get the guys to wear these like button up t-shirts that say Hot Dad Summer on them. And they're like, that is not metal. We are not wearing it. And it's because it goes against like the core principles of metal, apparently. So you saying
you should try wearing some underwear on the outside.
I can wear underwear on the outside as long as they're black. They have to be black apparently.
That's
to
metal.
Be metal.
Okay.
Yeah. So I just think it's funny. Like you're saying, that's the essence of this movie is like goodness, kindness, hope. That's punk rock. And it's like, you're captivating the genre specificity, or however you say that word, specificness of the genre within the music scene. Cause I'm always getting made fun of for it. I'll say something like, we should do it like this. And they'll be like, dude, that's not even metal. You're not even close. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I listen to jazz and classical music. Like,
in between.
Give me a break.
Well, what do you do when anti-establishment mindset has become the norm? When anti-establishment is the established conformity of our culture to hate the man and distrust authority. It's like, how do you actually rebel against that? How are you punk rock against that? How are you anti-establishment? It sort of flips the script. Like Superman actually gets to be counterculture.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing to me that people are eating it up. I've seen on multiple YouTube threads and things, people say, in a world of Homelander and Omni-Man, be Superman. And it's just people who are just kind of aching for, in a world of chaos and uncertainty. C.S. Lewis used to talk about the person who thinks they can see through everything. Well, if you see through everything, you see nothing. If the world was just transparent glass, it's like you see through things in order to see some truth beneath them. And this movie is, maybe punk rock is actually being kind and good. So this movie, it's about the same thing Santa Claus is kind of about, being good for goodness sake.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a call. It's like, I think Lois was the most normal character. And what is the journey of this movie? She goes from being a little skeptical whether their relationship to work to admitting, I love this man. And then the Justice Gang, they have the power, but they're like, well, we got our cushy jobs. Maxwell Lord is funding us. We're not going to involve ourselves in politics because we just got a little too much to lose, even if Clark is our friend. By the end of the movie, they go and do something risky to help their friend by involving themselves in that conflict. And then the government, they have brought up some good questions. One of the final things at the end of the movie is, well, I hope you're comfortable with the fact that effectively might makes right, that the metahumans now call the shots. Mm-hmm. But they move from mistrust to Superman to trust. And many reviewers are seeing this message. But the thing that I want to ask to push back against everybody is, okay, everybody seems to be loving this message just to be good. Then why don't we do it? Audience, why don't you do it? Why don't you be punk rock? Give it a shot. And the Bible will point out, well, what's wrong with us? Even when we go, the world is pushing me in this direction of cynicism and selfishness. And we see an example like Superman say, boy, that's great. What if I could? Maybe not in the Jesus perspective way, but follow Superman. The truth is that we need to be changed. We need to be transformed. The Bible says we need God's power to change. And so what I came away, my first reaction to this is I was looking at Clark and I go, man, I see a lot of the fruit of the Spirit coming out of this guy. The fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. It's like, just watch Superman in this movie. Love. He loves Lois. He loves that dog that's not even a very good dog. It makes me tear up just thinking about that scene. It's beautiful. Joy. He smiles when he flies. He likes pop music. Even he doesn't care if people think that his music taste is lame. He likes it. peace. This one was a little harder. This movie was about him finding peace, I think, where he's sitting back and going, I can have peace with the fact that my parents love me. Let's watch those home videos. Patience. Yeah. He shows a ton of patience. We'll get to this, but Jor-El says they are simple, profoundly confused, weak of mind, spirit, and body. That's aggravating if you are the superior person. He has patience with people. He has patience with his enemies. I love it. The last fight, he's still saying, well, what's he saying to them? You don't
tells the engineer, and because he doesn't know it's a clone of himself, he's just like, it's not too late for you guys. You can still turn. You can still turn.
It's like, you don't have to do with Lex, and they hit him. He's still he has patience and hope, kindness. He wants to just say, people are going to die. He hopes the villains will repent. Goodness. That's the whole goal of his movie. Faithfulness.
Well, he still even tries to call Luthor to repent.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. It's his final speech. I hope that you understand that. Kindness, goodness, faithfulness. When the world turns against him, he's still faithful. Again, he's still going after the dog. Best moment in the movie for my gentleness. He's minimum necessary force. I love the scene when Mr. Terrific is kind of rolling his eyes because Superman's trying to save what we're now going to call Stitch. Giant Stitch. Wrecking things.
Not Stitch. Yeah.
Not Stitch. So Giant Stitch. Superman's trying to take him back to his Ohana. And Mr. Terrific gives him like a death pills.
Death.
And it's funny is that he's not outraged at Mr. Terrific. He's just like, come on, there had to have been a better way.
Mm-hmm. But he even says, he's not dumb. He even says we could have found a nice, kind way to euthanize him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's minimum necessary force, gentleness, right? And then self-control. I one time when I was first dabbling in popcorn theology, made a little video called Superman's Most Admirable Power. And what I think it is his self-control. There's a joke, X-ray vision. I'd have fun with that, right? That was Superman Returns, I think. You're like, but Superman wouldn't. Yep. I used to call it his X-rated vision. Because most of us heathens would spy on everybody. Yeah. He doesn't, because he has self-control. He refuses to rule without mercy. He refuses to become Omni-Man. That's what's awesome about Superman, is what if you turn the power labels up to infinity and you still were the Boy Scout? Yeah. Like, that is hope. That's something to aspire for, and that's punk rock. That's the...
When you have Homelander there, too, and just to drive home the point of self-control... There's been an ongoing, especially with those three, and then you can throw in the Sentry there. Like, who would win in a fight? Homelander, Omni-Man, Superman, or the Sentry? I'm with you. I think it would be Sentry. But you basically have that conversation. The thing that I think is Superman's greatest power would be his weakness in that fight, because Omni-Man and Homelander wouldn't hold back, and then the Sentry, because of the Void, wouldn't be able to hold back either. And so you would have this cataclysmic thing. Yeah. But when you compare Superman and Homelander, with Homelander, you quite literally have a mentally unstable superhuman with the power level of Superman. Okay. And so you do quite literally have the greatest power with Superman of, I've got all this power and I refuse to use it for evil unless it's the injustice line. I refuse to use it for evil. And then with Homelander, it's like you say one wrong thing to him and he's using his heat vision to blow up your head kind of thing. Like, so I love that self-control, because that has been an ongoing conversation, especially with those like over the top powerful characters. That's what sets Superman apart from Homelander, Omni-Man, and the Sentry. Yeah. And that would be why he would lose.
Except Superman would be able to appeal to the Void and pull him out.
The Void. That was your point, right, James?
He would pull him out of it.
Yeah.
He would use that appeal to humanity, and it would actually work on, I forget what his real name is.
Bob.
Yeah.
And Bob would come out of it, and then the two of them would take down the other two. See, that's my only pushback.
Yeah. No, Superman would beat the Void because of that. He would.
He's the one man. He's the one guy who could appeal to virtue, and it's convincing. I think what James Gunn did, which you guys could push back if you think so. One thing I would say, he's not quite Superman from the comics. I think James Gunn's tactic, whether he knew it or not, I think he made Clark Kent Steve Rogers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he basically Steve Rogers'd him, like the language thing.
There was except for here's the thing with this Clark Kent is that he's unsure. Steve Rogers was sure of himself.
I don't know
of the righteousness of his cause.
The righteousness of his cause, maybe, but he's also willing to. He's a little less. My buddy Vinny saw the movie. He's like, the only thing I didn't see in Superman was meekness. Yeah. He's pretty cocky. And he's a little more cocksure, and that's not more. There's a meekness to and a calmness to even Christopher Reeve's character. There's almost this calm that he has.
Yeah.
And you kind of had a high-strung a little more stressed and anxious Clark in this movie, which is different from Superman's been done a bunch of different ways, but he kind of had that, and he was willing to throw a guy against, I don't know, would Clark Kent, would Superman throw the guy against the cactus and a little light torture? That seems a little more Steve Rogers.
I read the second Superman comic a while back. I was looking through and he says something like, if you don't turn away from your criminal ways, I will, it's like rip your heart out or something like that, or toss you across the ocean or something. It was,
people forget over, like,
they developed him.
We're working on a century of Superman here. He's been a lot of different things. So
people forget that. Yeah, I think he didn't feel like the dad that had all the answers, which Christopher Reeves kind of felt like.
Yeah.
But he felt like he was happy to be Superman, and he was trying the best he could to bring punk rock some goodness. And he was unashamedly a little silly, wearing the trunks on the outside, saying golly, liking the music he did, and just wanting people to live. It's like, that's...
And then feeling bad for lightly critiquing Terrific at the end.
Yes!
Like, oh, sorry, I shouldn't have said anything.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that was the worst language he used in the movie, was calling himself a jerk.
Yep.
Unless he was quoting the terrible things they said about him.
But such a jerk.
Yeah. Well, let's shift a little bit from Superman then and get to Jam's theme, which I think gets a little closer to my bald home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, my theme is the serpent in Metropolis and the second Adam.
Ooh, serpent.
Thinking through the parallel here, the big theme I had said that you tend to see with Superman in general with the character is essentially the hypostatic union, fully God, fully man, but you see it expressed in Clark Kent and Superman, right? Well, in this, you see the dynamic between what would effectively be Lex Luthor's serpent-like character from the Garden and then Superman's second Adam parallel. And so Lex is almost a shot-for-shot like parallel of Satan in the Garden. I'm currently actually leading my church through the book of Genesis. We've been preaching on it we're going on 7 weeks now. And while Genesis isn't purposed in telling us much about the serpent, other than the fact that he's crafty, like that's all that's described about the serpent. He's in the garden, he's crafty, which actually means he's just good at being deceitful. It does tell us essentially all we need to know, that he's God's enemy and he's humanity's enemy, and he tempts Adam and Eve. And the purpose of that, even in the text, you have Genesis 1, it tells you about the serpent, but then you also have the personal name of God within the very same verse 1. Personal name of God is revealed there. Well, that's significant because it's trying to show you the personal God of all the universe. This story is about him being faithful to his people. The serpent here, he's the enemy. Well, other places in the scriptures do expound on this Satan, this serpent. Ezekiel 28, for example, tells us that he was a beautiful creature that was cast out of the garden. Or then you have Revelation, right, which is the very last book of our Bible. And Revelation tells us that the dragon was the ancient serpent from the beginning. And so it gives us a little bit more context on Satan. But that's the reason you don't have a lot of information on Satan, because the Bible's just not about him. That's not the point, nor is his introduction in Genesis 3. He's not the point of that. The point is the personal God of the universe chasing after his people and being faithful to his people. And so what you see with Lex as this parallel, Lex has a jealousy of Superman. Who is Superman. I mean, if you think about the Superman character, he is the pinnacle of humanity. Like, it works out that we talked about, like, Superman is punk rock, right? It works out that we talk about that because he's the good guy. He is the pinnacle of that. And we're talking about different iterations, right? But even if you just say Superman, like we have said at multiple points, like, that's Superman, that's super. So we're using it to describe a concept, right? He's the pinnacle of humanity, Superman is. Well, Lex is jealous of that, and Lex picks up on that, and Lex hates that because Lex thinks of himself as beautiful. He thinks of himself as the pinnacle. He thinks he is the one that should be praised and honored. There's a quote from the movie. It says, "I'm aware that envy consumes my every waking moment. I know when they mention Galileo or Einstein or one of the other wits, it says, in the same breath as me, I feel a tight vomit burn in the back of my throat. But at least Galileo did something. He wasn't some dopey illusion catapulted on this planet just to have the world fawn over him because his strength illuminates how weak we really are." And then he says, "My envy is a calling. It is the sole hope for humanity because it is what has driven me to annihilating you." I mean, that says it all.
One A.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. That is the whole concept for Lex. That's his drive. He quite literally says he's the sole hope for humanity, him and his envy. And that just reminds me of the twisting of God's word and the temptation that the serpent orchestrates in the garden. And perhaps it's because man was made in God's image. Perhaps that's why you have Satan maybe envious over Adam and Eve, who are quite literally the pinnacle of creation. In the days of creation, you have God saying, it is good, it is good, it is good. And then you have mankind created in the image of God, and he says, it is very good. Like that is the peak of God's creation. And perhaps that's why. I mean, perhaps that's why Satan comes in and does what he does. He's envious and he has this, it's me. I'm the sole hope for God and this world and this creation. Maybe that's why. I don't know. I'm guessing here. But with this character, either way, we see that Lex is willing to lie. He's willing to kill and destroy, and he's doing so that he will be the peak. And then you have Superman. So contrast the two of them. God and man has always been a theme for Superman. Like that was one thing I loved and appreciated about Batman versus Superman. Say what you will about Jesse Eisenberg's Lex Luthor, but
I get a little vomit burn in the back of my throat.
Being in the same name.
The same,
Same sentence.
He brings up that concept so well. I looked up this quote. He says, see, what we call God depends upon our tribe. Clark Joe, cause God is tribal. God takes sides. No man in the sky intervened when I was a boy to deliver me from daddy's fist of abominations. I figured out way back, if God is all powerful, he cannot be all good. Well, that's the driving force for Eisenberg's Luthor to kill Superman. Like he wants to bring doomsday. He wants to kill Superman, right? He sees Superman as a dictator god. And that's always been a theme that I've seen reading Superman comics, even with Batman, Superman comic line. Like it's just that theme of this guy is too powerful to be left alive. We have to figure out a way to kill him. Like we can't control him. We have to kill him. And that's essentially what you have Lex trying to argue in here. But it is hidden behind his envy. Right?
Well, it's interesting. It's the way people justify their sin. They go, I'm just trying to protect humanity. I'm just trying to bring justice, equality, when really he is completely aware that it's envy that's driving him. A sheer hatred that there's something out there more important, more praiseworthy, more worthy of worship than he is. There's even moments in the scene when Luthor is like going laugh and like you guys did it. And you know that he's just playing a part. It's the opposite of how he feels.
Oh, he's egging him on. And it's that like, did God really say? That moment of clapping is the did God really say kind of moment. Because in that moment, they're defying what they perceive as God. This dictator God that they need to get rid of.
I kind of wonder if they didn't... James Gunn, I know, reads comics, so I kind of wonder if he intentionally or not borrowed. I loved this quote, probably one of my favorite quotes by sort of Lex in the movies, for sure. But it reminds me very much of something I talk about in my book, Cinemagogue. It's actually called Earth X, written by Jim Kruger. And that's the whole point. It's Uatu the Watcher talking to the Machine Man. And he talks about how humanity rejects its saviors because the savior reveals their neediness or their weakness. That they're in a state of needing to be saved. And so they'll always try to fight or kill their saviors because it reminds them of their lack.
Yes.
And it's like, that's exactly what Lex communicates right here in the movie. And the minute he said that, it's just like, wait, did Lex Luthor read Earth X? Because,
that's the problem the Pharisees have with Jesus healing on the Sabbath too. What's more lawful Jesus has, to heal on the Sabbath or to keep the Sabbath? Like which one of you when you see a brother in need is going to turn away from that brother kind of concept? And I mean, that's it. You see Superman doing good, but it reveals our weakness. It reveals our frailty. And then it's like, well, I don't like that. It's the shining a light in the dark under a rock and seeing all the cockroaches fly. Superman's the light. We're the cockroaches just flying away. And Lex's resolve is, well, let's just get rid of Superman. And so that theme, I love that theme. And Superman has that fun hypostatic union theme, right? The understanding that Jesus is both fully God and fully man. Shylin would say 200% in his song about the hypostatic union. He's not half God, half man. Jesus isn't. That would be a demigod, which is impossible considering there is only one God. But he represents humanity and God fully. And you have in the character of Superman, which I love that they had this comic book, like deep comic book lore of the hypno glasses, and they add that in because that's always a thing people say, like, really, people wouldn't know that's Superman kind of thing. It's like, well, in the comics they talk about that, like it's hypno glass. I love that they add that, but you have Clark Kent, which is the perfect human. Granted, he runs late for things and he misses things, and he's very akin to even what you see with like Peter Parker in the early Tobey Maguire movies, right? But he's this perfect human. He's this nice guy. Everyone likes him. He seems to always be doing right. But you typically see him depicted as this perfect guy, that Clark Kent guy. And I'm reminded of Hebrews 4, verse 15, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but one who in every respect has been tempted as we are, yet he's without sin. You see, because Jesus lived as a human, he was able to understand what we go through, but he doesn't leave us in that. Right now, there's a trend that empathy replaces sympathy. And some translations even replace the word sympathy with empathy, which is just completely ridiculous. And I bring this up because Superman, much like Jesus, he takes the suffering of man. He takes it on himself. He understands it, but it's by the work of his own hands that he seeks to bring out man from their suffering and darkness. He doesn't keep them in it. And the difference between empathy and sympathy is being in it with them, and you're just in it with them, staying with them. You're not seeking to pull them out. Sympathy is saying, hey, I get where you're coming from, but there's a better way. Let's work together. Let's get out of this. There's a guy named Joe Rigney. He wrote a great article. I've recently, my wife and I read through The Sin of Empathy, which was a book he wrote. But there was a great article that I had read a little bit ago. It was called The Enticing Sin of Empathy. And it's worth a read. You can Google it and look it up. But it's written in the fashion of like the Screw Tape Letters with Lewis. And he writes, since we introduced the term a century ago, we've steadily taught humans to regard empathy as an improvement upon compassion or sympathy. Compassion only suffers with another person. Empathy suffers in them. So you are suffering with them. What they're going through, you're suffering in that. You're staying in that. You're not alongside them. And he says it's a total immersion into the pain, into the sorrow, into the suffering of the afflicted. Under our influence, we've taught the humans to think only a heartless and unfeeling beast could oppose such a total immersion, such a generous act of love. Our recent success in this conceptual migration has given us ample opportunity for mayhem. Now, what we see with Superman is Superman in the film, he's not immersed in Luthor's suffering. He's not immersing himself in Luthor's feelings. Superman stands up for what is good, what is beautiful, what is true. And we see he's able to sympathize with Lex. He recognizes where Lex is coming from, but he also calls Lex to repentance. Empathy doesn't call to repentance. Sympathy does. Sympathy calls to repentance. That's why it's in that moment where he's saying there's still a chance. Because he's not empathizing with him, he's sympathizing.
Yeah. I've noticed something with when people use the word empathy. Sometimes it really is used as a dodge.
Yes.
So they'll say this. They'll call, you need to have empathy more than sympathy. But then in the next breath, they will say, you couldn't possibly understand how I feel.
Yes. Yeah.
That way they can be isolated and not touched by any of your observations or help or anything or pity or anything. So in the same breath, this isn't everybody, but they'll say, you need to have more empathy. And then they will say, you couldn't possibly understand how I feel. And you go, what do you want?
Which one
do you want?
Do
you want to be so deep in your pain that nobody can understand and I should pity you or something? Or do you want empathy so that I'm in there with you?
Leads you there. Yeah. Rigney talks in his book about essentially sympathy being an anchor. So when you're understanding what someone is going through, you yourself are anchored onto what is good, true, and beautiful. You're anchored onto this is where we need to stand. We need to stand on God's reality. But sympathy says, hey, I get where you're coming from. I understand you're feeling that way. I understand you're upset about that. That circumstance sucks, but you are anchored to what is good, true, and beautiful so that when you're reaching out with sympathy, you can pull them back into what is good, true, and beautiful.
In the middle of a fight, you can say, you don't have to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's where, and I think the case in point, even that example and the case in point of Superman, you've already quoted it, Miles, but he says, this is where you've always been wrong about me, Lex. Yep. I am as human as anyone. I get scared. I wake up every morning, and despite not knowing what to do, I put one foot in front of the other, and I try to make the best choices I can. I screw up all the time, but that is being human, and that's my greatest strength. And someday, I hope, for the sake of the world, you understand that is yours too. He's trying to pull him out. Hey, this is good. This is true. This is beautiful. Let me pull you out of where you are. Sympathy sees, it acknowledges the suffering of the individual. It helps them to overcome what they're going through. It is not calloused hard-heartedness of, well, it's dumb that you feel that way. Well, that's not sympathy either, right? That's the opposite side of it. That's not caring for a brother in their afflictions. That's not weeping with those who weep. But there's a particular area of weeping with those who weep that isn't helpful, and that would be empathy. And so, man, when you're thinking about the parallels here, you've got the serpent Lex, and then you have the sympathetic second Adam. And ultimately what you see played out is this Superman second Adam who sympathizes with us in our weakness. Superman is a lamb led to the slaughter who is despised and rejected, as Isaiah says and describes of Christ. I mean, you think about it. Superman is essentially, Lex gets the whole world to go against Superman, yet Superman's still standing on what's right. Like he's saying he's going to come back to liberate a people who were being swallowed into a pit. Quite literally, you have a pit being open and people being thrown into it. And Superman comes out of that pocket dimension and says, nah, not today. I'm standing for what's good, true, and beautiful. Let me pull you out of that pit. And then you have like where humanity fails, Superman works despite the passivity of Lex's employees to liberate them from Lex's tyrannical ways. You have a serpent Lex who has influenced an entire group of people to think, Superman's actually the enemy, let's get rid of him. And even though that's the case, Superman still comes and offers them an opportunity to get out. That's a second Adam Christ character, like you see communicated by Paul in Romans. Where humanity fails, Superman steps in to help. Where Superman, his very disciples, think about this, he has disciples, right? Lois, he has Jimmy, he has the Justice King. They all leave him. They all forsake him. They want nothing to do with him at one point, right? Lex and Lois, they fight with each other. Jimmy's just kind of like that sideline character. He doesn't have a whole lot of backbone until Lois steps in. The Justice King's like, we're not getting involved with this. They all forsake him at one point. But his return from the pocket dimension sparks a hope in them for all of them to fight.
And the only way he could escape from that pocket dimension was when the cruelty, the serpent behavior of Lex came through when he kills Malik Ali, I think it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which, by the way, is I went with a friend this last weekend. And he said, "Yeah, this is why my kids aren't going to watch this. That was too much."
Yep.
And then Mineral Man was willing to say, "Okay, I'm going to be brave.
Metamorpho.
I'm going to do it. Yep.
I've been called. Yeah.
Well, then get this parallel here of a second Adam, a Christ figure with Superman, and then I'll turn it over to you because there's a lot more I can go on. But get this parallel. You have Jesus, who is crucified, who is in the tomb, and it's two women that come to see Jesus, come to prepare his body for the burial. Here in this movie, you have Lois, a woman, who is the one that pushes to go to this pocket dimension, this burial place where he's supposed to be dead, right?
Nice.
She intends to go to Superman's tomb, and when she goes there, she then goes, sees Superman, and takes the good news of Superman's return to the others. And then the others are empowered and emboldened with this good news to do what's right, even to the point of the Justice Gang going and fighting. I mean, there's tons there. I wanted to mention this. I was talking to my friend today about the movie. He was telling me he was going to jump into our live stream tonight, and he asked what I thought about the movie, and we're talking about it. And he pointed out, his name's Colin, he pointed out that the kaiju battle where the kids are rushing to Superman reminded him of Luke 9:47 and 48, or Matthew 19:13 or 14. And then I was talking with him just before this, and I was telling him, there's also the scene at the end of the movie where the two countries are about to go to war together. And you've got all the adults who have raised weapons ready to go, thinking that in their own strength, they're going to fight this battle. And it's kids who are holding up the flag for Superman because he's the only hope. And that reminds me of the fact that the disciples are asking, which of us are the greater? And Jesus says, well, unless you have a faith like these children, you will not inherit the kingdom of God. And in that scene, you have that displayed fully. Like, there's a lot of parallels there.
Well, I can remember the first time I read James's book, Cinemagogue, and he has the paragraph that was said, in our reaction to Jesus as Superman, we are either Lex Luthor or Lois Lane.
Yep.
We are either our Lois Lane fumbling into problems and needing to be saved. You might be able to say we're either Lex Luthor or the kids in Jarampur. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But Lex is this attitude that says, I hate the idea of God. I hate something above me. I hate something that is unfathomably more beautiful, powerful, or morally superior to me. And it's like that C.S. Lewis quote, the gates of hell are locked from the inside. because there's just deep down, there's a certain amount of hatred, even for the idea of something superior. But if you approach Superman like a kid, like the kids in Narnia who play with Aslan the lion, it's like then you might be saved and redeemed, and be like, that's what this movie catches, even if it really messes with the mythos of Superman.
Yeah, you mentioned that people who hate the idea of something above them, hate the idea of a Superman. And the theme I picked up on, which, again, I said I loved the movie, buttered and salted, but now I'm going to pick on it a little bit, because what I picked up was James Gunn's conscious or unconscious beef with God. Mm-hmm. Now, I wondered about this back in Guardians of the Galaxy 2 in the subtext that was there with Ego.
Yes.
The character Ego, very changed much from the comics, but you have this idea of a celestial or godlike being. And what was his goal in that movie?
To create image bearers who are fruitful and multiply?
Yes, magnification and expansion of his image. In fact, even Star-Lord, his mom says, "You're so like your daddy, you even look like him." And he was an angel composed out of pure light. Yep. So here you had a godlike being who fathered a son by a human mother, and his goal is about the expansion of his image. He even says, Ego says he became human, experienced what it was like, but he wants the universe to image him. He wants to transform and conform the world, all worlds, to reflect him. And of course, what is his name again? Ego. And he is the villain. He is bad. You have this godlike parallel, which totally dovetails with, as you already alluded, Miles, right? We are made in his image and likeness to magnify his image, right? There's even this idea in the Old Testament, the idea of why even we have faces on coins. You have the emperor's face on a coin, so the currency goes out in the people carry the currency and the image of, they're bearing the image of the emperor, right? That this whole idea of magnifying image has played itself out through kings and kingdoms. And that's really just a human version of doing what God is doing, right? It's expansion of his image being reflected everywhere. And now we jump over to the DC universe and look at the traditional Superman and the mythology that evolved in the 1978 movie and in Man of Steel. And this is where I'd say James Gunn has given us a film that is actually less like the core heart of Superman than actually Man of Steel, because he's actually removed everything you were just talking about, hypostatic union and all the ways that Superman reflects Jesus. Gunn took all of the super, and by that I mean the spiritual, out of super and left us only with the man.
Yeah.
He is no longer the hypostatic union because he's not sent by a loving father. The obvious Christ parallel, of course, in Superman is that a loving father sends his only son to earth, and then he has his father's messages, the crystals, the fortress, even.
Well, do you remember what Kal-El means in Hebrew?
Yeah.
Kal or Kol is voice or sound of El, of God.
Right.
Yeah. Voice
of
God.
Voice of God. And so you have the father who sends the son to earth. And then, of course, even in Man of Steel did it beautifully. Then his father is not there, but his father's spirit, the little computer program, shows up and equips him with superior wisdom to the world. And this has been in Superman mythos forever. Like Christopher Reeve trained from age 18 to 30 at the Fortress to get all of the Kryptonian wisdom, everything he needs to be the planet's protector, and lead them, as I think both Marlon Brando and Russell Crowe said, to join him or lead the others to the light. And so to all the people who think Zack Snyder didn't get Superman and thinks that this version gets it right, you've actually been subtly fooled by a great artist. This version looks like Superman. He's got the trunks, even feels like Superman, saves the squirrels. But the core of what makes him unique has actually been ripped out right from under your nose. He walks like Superman, he quacks like Superman, but the super soul has been removed, right? Everything that made him the Christ parallel is undone by undermining and disparaging the sending by the Father and the equipping that always made Clark Kent operate, again, as I mentioned earlier, with that calm, patient wisdom in previous incarnations. That's why I think it's a little more Steve Rogers than Superman. He has an idea of moral goodness, but he's sort of conflicted. He's just like
desire to do what is right, but not the ability to carry it out.
I see your point now.
Operationally, this version has been effectively retooled to be relatable. This Superman is a functional agnostic.
Yeah.
Dang.
He's trying to be good with some, maybe at best, general revelation.
Yeah.
That's I wake up every morning, I put my shoes on just like you. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just trying to figure out this good thing. I screw it up, but that's being human. That's my greatest strength. And that last part of the line is what I don't like.
Yeah.
Because that's a very agnostic, screwing up, whatever, not knowing what to do. Like, that's being human, and that's my greatest strength. It's like, well, Superman fans, that's not Superman. That's actually Spider-Man.
Yeah, you're right.
Historically, Clark's equipping from Jor-El, that was his greatest strength, far more than his physical powers. And I'd say both fathers. Like you had the idea that both of his upbringings, he had a Kryptonian or heavenly father from the stars, and he had a good father and mother, and he had those things to guide his actions. And of course,
it's like the implied story is, what would be great? How do you get somebody who's really good if they have both a solid earthly father and a good guiding heavenly father?
Yeah,
like that's an implied lesson that's always running through the old Superman stories
until now. And what's worse, this movie even sidelines his Earth parents.
Yeah,
his previous versions stressed the Middle America small town and, let's face it, likely Christian values of Kansas farmers back in the day, and the value of the Kents impacted him morally as well. But I really did not like what Pa Kent said in this movie. He said to Clark, "Parents aren't telling their children who they're supposed to be. We're here to give you all tools to help you make fools of yourselves all on your own." And I'm just going to put this in here. That is not the heart of biblical parenting, people.
No, it is not. Yeah.
Like modern parenting suggests that parents only teach their kids critical thinking skills and then allow them to completely self-determine. And
you know what's actually I'm stealing your point, but what's my least favorite part of Batman vs Superman is when Martha Kent says, "Be their hero, be their monument, or be none of it. You don't own this world a thing." And I was like, that's not Martha Kent.
Yeah.
That's not biblical parenting.
Well, at least
I see some Christians actually teach like this sometimes. It blows my mind. Like Deuteronomy 6 is diametrically opposed to this. It's like, this is who God is. Teach this to your children.
Yes.
Tell them. Proverbs is completely opposed to this. Train your child up in the way they should go. It's not just teaching them how to walk, but also the direction to walk. It's the path and the moral framework and foundation. So my problem here is Superman literally has been raised with no standard.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
To quote Richard Foltz.
Yes.
By what standard?
Oh, yeah.
He's trying to be good, but
that was the whole movie is my parents sent me here to do the most good. And I was like, what is good on your view?
Well, and he's even brought to that dilemma, isn't he? I have a question about this. Maybe you guys can clarify for me. But when it's brought to the point of, oh, here's your parents' message, here's the full thing. He's brought to the point of, so what? Almost like I've always tried to be good, and then the question is like, so what? You've had no moral objectivity, and so now the question for you is, so what? You tried to be good, you still want to be good, so what? Like, you could be just like the Justice Gang and going out and killing everyone. Why does it matter? Like, why does it matter if you're not like them? Or you are absolutely right. He's had no moral objectivity. My question is, did they verify that message was legit at the end?
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that this movie, I thought it was going to be a twisted plot, the type of thing that Lex Luthor did. But it's like they hit you over the head with the fact that this is not fake. Yep. Is that the government confirms it, Mr. Terrific confirms it, and then Lex in a private conversation with that kind of bumbling president in the Pocket universe confirms it. And the second time I watched it, I said, there was no reason for him over the head. Yeah,
there's no reason for him in that private conversation to still pretend that it's not fake if it is fake. And he literally says, "He's like, who knew I'd find something that I didn't even have to."
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
That's basically what he says. And James Gunn has confirmed it offline too. He's like, people who are upset. It's funny to see how many people still living in denial though and saying that it's fake and you guys all just didn't understand it. There's a whole other conversation we can't get into about.
Maybe I'm in denial because this whole time I've been thinking to myself, nah, that's not real. That's not Superman. Well, I've been using that. And that's not Superman. That's not real.
And it was built on the strange premise that they could hack into the computer, which was tough for me. But that's the thing. This movie wipes the mythos clean of its foundation. I mean, it just decimates it in order to tell an interesting story, but it just smashes it. I mean, Jor-El, Laura-El, they are done in terms of the rest of these stories. There's no reason to connect to them.
Miles, I think it was you that found a quote from James Gunn. He says, that's the whole point of the movie. The Superman thinks he's doing something because it's his destiny, and his Kryptonian parents have set him out to do this thing. And along the way, he discovers through the love of the people who are actually his parents that he's doing these things not because of someone else, but because of himself. It's like taking this is what he says. So he says it's like taking accountability in the deepest way possible. That listen to this. His morality is not based on some figure outside of himself, but on his own choices.
Yeah.
And then he says, I think it's really beautiful in that way, and I'm not going to change that. Now I'm going to pause right there and just point out James Gunn's circular reasoning.
Yeah.
Your morality can't be based on your choices. It's good or bad because I chose to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like that.
Your identity can be.
That's one of those phrases that sounds kind of beautiful, but you're like, wait, that actually doesn't. My morality is based on my choices. You have to have morality to choose what you choose.
And perhaps there's
that
in terms
That
of
doesn't
receive,
actually
reject,
work.
redeem, you're like, there's a way to redeem this in the sense of a Christian child needs to move from my parents told me what is reality, who God is, and what I should do, and they enforced it with all the strength of a parent. I need to move to a point at which I genuinely believe it and I choose it. Even if God's leaving that.
But you're still doing it because God said. There's still an outside figure.
But it's a mess. We were talking a bit about how they made Superman into Spider-Man. Here's what I think James Gunn did. He went back into his best moment, in my opinion. And he didn't turn Superman into Spider-Man. He turned Superman into Rocket Raccoon. So in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, my favorite movie, or my favorite part of that movie is when Rocket Raccoon has his near-death experience. And Rocket Raccoon goes to Lila and he says, "It's my fault you're dead. I'm so sorry." And she's in a peaceful place. And he says, "Can I come?" And she says, "Yes, but not yet. You have a purpose here." And Rocket goes, "A purpose for what? They made us for nothing. Just a stupid experiment to be thrown away." And Lila says, "There are the hands that made us, and there are the hands that guide their hands." And so Rocket embraces, I'm going to be a guardian of the galaxy, be who I really am. But what Rocket is struggling with is my origin is nothing. My parentage, my lineage is evil and twisted, and it's just some stupid experiment. And Lila says this, "My beloved raccoon, the story has always been yours, all along." And so James Gunn's philosophy, I think, is this. You get to lift your moral philosophy up from your own bootstraps and decide who you're going to be, which is like beautiful and warm and fuzzy. And then even in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the wonderful thing is that there's this idea of God, the hands that guide the hand. But what he did is he doesn't have the hands that guide the hand in Superman. And all he's left with is the story has been yours all along. And he's just, John Locke said it's like a castle in midair. Ungrounded ethics. And I love living up in the castle. It's very fun. I will revisit the castle. But there's nothing underneath there. And you're like, who?
Well, that's where I think James Gunn has some beef with. It's interesting because I saw a recent quote from him talking, I think it was like his wife and his anniversary, and he was thanking God for all of their wonderful time.
All right.
So it's like, I wonder what James Gunn believes about God. Because I think he has a beef with the biblical. Like, what does his God look like? Because if we get back to that, when we look at Jor-El and Lara's message, you already alluded to this a little bit earlier, Miles. It says, the people, talking about humans, are simple and profoundly confused, weak of mind, body, and spirit. Like, wow. Okay. Honestly, I think he's being kind. Romans 3, Psalm 14, Psalm 53. No one is righteous. We are corrupt. We do abominable deeds. None of us do good. Ecclesiastes 7 says there's not a righteous man on earth who does good and never sins. That is Jor-El nails the assessment of humanity. And then he says, Lord over the planet as the last son of Krypton. Now, I know what we might think that says, but okay, has he said anything bad yet? We have to define what lording means. Philippians 2 says, at the name of Jesus, every knee shall bow, every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord to the glory of God the Father. Right? So Jesus is Lord, and he is over us even though he served us. He is Lord.
Steel says they will come after you, they will stumble and fall, but in time they will join you in the sun. Well, that's leadership and a little bit lordship. You're instructing them. You're leading them above themselves. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Well, it's certainly, the way it's set up in this is certainly perceived in a negative light. Like the lording over them is definitely perceived in a negative light. But
because none of us want to actually think, even all of the place, let's face it, even Christians, in our flesh, we don't want to have a Lord. We don't have to bend our knee. That's all.
Or how about this? You were made to be ruled.
Yeah. What is it? Edwards said, I think it was Edwards, be killing sin, or sin will be killing you. And you could change that with have Lord as Christ, or sin will be Lord over you. And so lordship, biblically speaking, is it's the reality of every human being. And the question of every human being that you have to wrestle with is, am I going to be lorded over by sin? Or
which Lord?
Will I have Christ as my Lord, which is described as the Comforter, the Prince of Peace, the mighty God, El Gabor, right? Wonderful Counselor. So you have to come to grips with that. But this movie certainly tries to imply that lording over is a poor thing.
The first time I heard that speech, I thought it was, okay, Kal-El, you're our hope. What you need to do is go there, do the most good, rule over them. You're better than all of them, and have the most kids. I did not hear the Laura line that says, dispatch anyone unable or unwilling to serve you, Kal-El. I didn't hear that part.
But stay with me here. I'm going to get a little crazy.
Go for it.
So, dispatch of anyone unable or unwilling to serve you, Kal-El. Let's see. unable, well, but unwilling to serve you. I know that everybody loves Christ's first coming, but we also have to remember his second coming, right? Revelation 17 says they will wage war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will triumph over them because he's the Lord of Lords, King of Kings. There is an idea in Scripture that, quite frankly, God will deal with, and he will crush and put all of his enemies under his feet. That is absolutely biblical, and Jesus will be the judge in the end of days.
Well, it's interesting.
There is something here where, now, the last line that she says, the last line they say is rule without mercy.
Yeah.
It's
Or rule
like,
with
all
a rod of iron. No, but mercy.
And the take as many wives thing, it's like, take as many wives as you can so your genes are
here's where I went.
legacy.
By the time they got to that message, I went, oh, he's not the Christ figure anymore. So I didn't actually think about the lordship of Christ of every knee bowing, because Jesus is worthy of worship. Worthy is the Lamb. And so when I saw this movie, I thought, from an atheistic perspective, why is it bad? So the Kryptonian culture is being destroyed. So they're doing cultural preservation, diversity. Yeah. They're increasing diversity on the planet. And it's just survival of the fittest. And imagine this. Imagine if the world was filled with half Kryptonians. They're flying. They're solar powered. That reduces your carbon footprint. And what is your problem? It's just that it's inconvenient that you are prejudiced towards your own weak human flesh, that you don't want to be ruled over by the Kryptonians. What is your grand objective? By what standard is the thing that there's the God-shaped hole in the movie is, where's the subjection come from? I know that you have a Christian background moviegoer that objects to this, but he's dropping the spiritual bottom out of the movie and then still trying to climb it. It's borrowing from the Christian world to kind of try to debunk it or press up against it.
Right. I think it's rubbing. I think James Gunn is pushing back on the pieces of Christianity or maybe parts of God that he does not like.
Sure.
Because I mean, obviously, right? Rule without mercy. Well, that's not the God we have. Thank God for grace. There's a plan of salvation. But I think what's really humbling that I think Christians can have a good conversation about that line. It's like you say, like, what is so wrong about most of this? Like, okay, I'll give you the mercy line, but at the end of the day, there's something very humbling, like you're talking about with Lex, Jam. Right? What we have to take in the humbling that a Christian goes through first is that we're not the main focus of the story. It's not our story, to your point, Miles. It's that James Gunn, it's your story all along. No, it's not my story. And in fact, one of the most humbling things I like to talk about sometimes is, I'm discipling Christians, is we're being saved not because we're awesome and not even because the story is about us. We're being saved because Jesus deserves worshipers. Right? That's the covenant of redemption.
Yeah, was it missions exist because worship doesn't?
Yeah. Like Ephesians 1 and John 6 give us that portrait of the covenant of redemption. There was a plan before the universe was formed. The Father loves the Son loves the Father. The Father is drawing a people to himself because he loves his Son and is giving his Son a bride.
Yes.
Like our part in the story is Lois Lane, and actually it's more of an arranged marriage. Right? He sends his Son to redeem that bride, which the Son does because he loves the Father. The Holy Spirit regenerates the hearts of those who are being saved. We're being saved out of this triune love. We're brought into a relationship of love and relationship already. The Father loves the Son, giving him a kingdom over which we're the subjects, and all others will be destroyed. He'll be Lord over us. And we're told that's a good and glorious thing, and that God's doing it for his good pleasure. There's a lot of humbling there. But I think I reread Jor-El's thing. It's like, how mad should I be at Jor-El? I'm going to send my son. He's going to be Lord. He's a better Lord for them than themselves, because look at all the crazy wars in Barovia and everything else.
He's morally, physically superior. He's helping our race survive. But here's the deal for me, is that this movie it preaches so loudly Jesus' form of power, of how you're supposed to use power. So in the end, this movie is just completely indebted to the Christian.
That's something I was saying to my friend Colin too, of like, even when you have issues like this, even when you're taking the spirituality out of Superman, and I'm sure even just watching the movie, I had a presupposition of Superman. Like, this is what Superman is, right? So that's why I'm quickly jumping to that conclusion I jumped to. But you're absolutely right. When you're dissecting the narrative here, it's like the intention of the filmmaker was to remove the Jesus parallel. And I was actually telling Colin, like, I don't think James Gunn was intending to have a clearly overt Christ figure, but you can't get away from the Christ figure with Superman, even when you remove it. Like, even when you remove that and you change it, you can't get away from it.
Are all still there.
And
it was just many of the trappings.
That's where we just say image bearer is going to bear. Like, you want to remove the clear Christ imagery from this character whose name quite literally means the word, and you want to remove it from him, but at the end of the day, you can't.
for me, I came away with basically one statement about, okay, the Christ imagery stuff. They stripped away his origin. They stripped away his divine parentage. They stripped away his good old-fashioned Christian values. But Lex reacts to him exactly how the world reacts to God. So that is still there. And he's still the most powerful.
And ultimately, he's still operating under a lot of those values. Now we just have zero clue where they're coming from.
Yeah, listen to this. Imagine this. Imagine Superman saying, you know what, Lex? You don't understand what power is about. Because, those who are considered rulers of the Gentiles in this modern world lord it over them, and their great ones exercise authority, like Jor-El says. But it shall not be so among you and among me. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. Whoever would be the first among you must be slave of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many.
Yeah.
That's Jesus. And so this movie, the moral framework of Superman in this movie is straight from Jesus's ethic on what you should do with power and leadership. He says, I thought my parents sent me to serve humanity, to do the most good. And he took it straight out of Christian values. And so it's like, you're completely indebted to Christianity while you're, I think James Gunn's heart was this. I want to make the most relatable Superman I can. But they really tore up the legacy of the character with this, and it's a bit unfortunate.
And I don't know James Gunn's history, but I don't know what his relationship was like with his father or fathers. But there's almost that idea of you called it bootstrap morality. And what's funny is you mentioned presuppositions earlier, Jam. I think what some people like James Gunn may or may not fully think about or discuss, or it might be a good conversation to have with somebody like that, is we think, well, I'm gonna just build my morality myself. It's like, you have so many presuppositions. You're not building it on your own.
Sure. Yeah.
Like everything that you think, I'm going to disconnect from religion, disconnect from this, not going to do it just because my father did. And so I'm just going to do what feels right. It's like, well, you're just drawing on a bunch of presuppositions and behavioral and other things that have been built into you. You're just not consciously realizing that you're drawing from Judeo-Christian values and different pieces of your culture.
We can gripe about the hands that shaped this movie, but we know that there are hands that guide the hands.
That's right.
That lead us. I mean, really.
I just preached Genesis 3 a few weeks ago, and my entire argument of Genesis 3 is that what we see in Genesis 3 is not only the entering of sin into the garden and therefore the hearts of man, but most importantly, we see that mankind becomes obsessed with self-sovereignty. Mm-hmm. So where before you have the sovereignty of God ruling over the garden without question, because there's no need for question, he is good. Sin enters into the world, and the question of, did God really say, sparks the idea of self-determinism and sparks the idea of self-sovereignty. I should be able to determine what is and is not good for me. And that's the problem we see in Lex Luthor. That's the problem.
It's the problem we see in Jonathan Kent in this movie.
That's the problem you see with Clark even. Like, that's why I said he comes to that point in the movie where his parents' message comes out and he's like, I just wanted to be good. What do I do now? And it's like, so what? Like, you have a problem because you've self-determined that you are this big hero, but you have no moral compass to base any of that off of. It's just whatever you feel. And we can clearly perceive that because of Jonathan Kent, right? Because he's saying, we just give you the tools to figure it out on your own. It's like, that's so awful parenting. That's such awful parenting. Like, you want your kids to do what is right and what is good. And he's just figure it out on your own.
And it's probably not even true, right? Because then you see the images at the end. It's like, well, he did probably, whether he knows it or not, he's inculcated a lot of the values and the way that they raised him. And he is operating out of those things, even if he thinks he's doing it by himself. So I have to wonder, I almost wish they'd kept the subtitle on this film because they were originally going to call it Superman Legacy. Part of me wonders if they didn't drop it because I'm not sure James Gunn thinks that Legacy is anything worthwhile.
Is it good? It's not good.
No, we all just make it up as we go for our own life. Like,
Legacy would have been fitting if Superman's dad was more of a prominent voice of reason within his life. Legacy would have been fitting if they didn't completely rob all spiritual aspects of Superman by gutting out the characters of his actual mom and dad, right? Legacy would have been fitting
turning the L's, turning the gods.
Yeah, but now it's like it is fitting, just dissecting and thinking about the movie more. It's fitting that they removed Legacy because Superman quite literally has no legacy that he's carrying on at this point.
And I don't even want to say that I don't think they've turned him into something bad. They've turned him into most other heroes, Spider-Man or any Earthbound hero. They've kind of turned him. He doesn't have that huge heritage and almost spiritual biblical resonance kind of legacy. He's just trying to figure it out like an agnostic wandering around the world, trying to figure out what good is and trying not to harm others. Like, well, that
he doesn't
it makes
become
him more relatable, I think, to your average,
precisely.
maybe average American. But I don't know that but it disconnects him from a pretty big legacy of his character being different.
You see that character, that you see the agnostic morality taking place when you have the conversation between Lois and Clark is essentially arguing they were going to hurt people, to which she says, well, you didn't even consider what the implications of you doing what you did was going to be, to which he's just like, and in that moment I think you're supposed to be kind of reasoning with Superman a little bit more, like, no, Superman does that, like, they're hurting people. Of course he's going. But then you start thinking about it more. It seems like Lois had more of a logical, moral compass in that moment to say,
if you
we've
walk
got
into a
objective
dentist
reality
office,
of government.
You know, if you walk into a dentist office and somebody's going, you stop hurting that man right now.
It's like, yeah.
So, yeah, there's, it works. But I think, man, if the conflict had been different, he might have been wrong. And they could have told a story about him trying, and I mess up, and I'm just going to try my best. Yeah, I love this movie. I will go watch it excitedly.
Well, I love lots of movies that don't reflect all of my favorite beliefs and themes. There's still a lot of fun movies that obviously are off by degrees as far as my worldview that I can still have a lot of fun with. So I hope everybody's going to like, boy, they really hated this movie. Like, no, I love the movie, but I'm willing to admit where it's definitely off the mark, where previous Superman incarnations were a little more spiritually interesting.
Let me ask you, James, for my film and theology class at the school, is this a Superman movie that is at the top of the list to show the kids? Or is there another Superman movie that you think is far more impactful?
I think this one that's why I'd say my favorites are the original Superman is obviously, the first half of that movie is an epic, just setting up all of who he is and how he came to be, the lessons of both fathers. There's something that undeniable. The last half of the movie kind of turns more into comedy and it's a little bit silly. But that first half, I think watching that first half really informs the second half. I think this movie or Man of Steel could be interesting for the talking points. I feel those talking points are better if you've already encountered that first one.
Yeah.
I say without having that foundational understanding of the first film, even though it might be dated to a generation of kids now. I don't know.
Funny enough, I think this movie will lead to more moral improvement than the other ones did because it makes you inspired to try to be punk rock, to be good. But when you think deeper about it, it might leave you in a bit of nihilism, despair. Confusion, but it makes me want to be a better person more than any of the other ones. So
well, here's the thunder, and we will have our lightning round because we are running out of time. But I don't have a lot of things really in the lightning round to talk about what we need to thoughtfully reject, receive, or redeem. But I would double down on what I said earlier, though, is to Christian parents, like, raise your children as believers. Like, this is, I encourage parents in this, and no matter which side of the baptism equation you fall on, I think we can agree on some basics here. It's like, raise your children. This is what we believe. This is what is the truth. I think this is what our family believes. This is what our household believes, right? The world says, teach them to think and let them find themselves. And even some Christians, I think they raise their kids like, well, this is what mommy and daddy believes. And it's almost this disconnect. I'm not sure. Almost as if they're being raised. So I need to grow up and learn to think and decide for myself. Yes, there needs to be some ownership. I think, Miles, you talked about that earlier, but classic historical catechisms raised children as if they were part of the family of God. Yeah. Just like children in Israel in the Old Testament were raised as part of God's people until they then professed otherwise.
Yes.
The ownership can swing either way, right? Let them grow up and say, I decide to not own this. Versus I decide to grow up and say, oh, okay, I own this. Yeah. Like, it could go either way. I was like, raise them. This is what we believe, son. This is what we believe, daughter. Like, bring them into that so that then I think that instead of leaving it questionable, that maybe they need to, quote unquote, figure it out themselves. I don't know.
Think about the 78 Superman. You were sent here for a reason.
Yeah.
And we can say that to our children.
Yeah, you are an image bearer of God.
Yes.
Yep.
Jesus did this. Like,
you're here to love God and love others. And this is why me and your mom make the decisions that we do. And it's like, and they can wrestle with that when they're older, but we play like two different games. It's like, we tell them this is the truth about all kinds of other things. Then we get to the important spirituality truths and go,
well, this is what we believe. And you need to say,
yeah.
Well, like, for example, here's my next one. We'll tell them, don't swear. Well, why? Because our words are meant to honor God. But that's the reject for me was I wanted to share this movie with my 5-year-old son so badly.
Same here. Same here.
But
Yep.
there was the gunshot in the head thing, which works narratively because Lex is horrible, and then there was just swearing all around Superman. The Justice Gang uses profane language. Green Lantern is using middle fingers to flip tanks. It's funny, but it's kind of awful.
But was it really that different from the first Avengers movie though? Because it had swearing and even like Coulson gets gutted. I don't know.
Some, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say it's much worse, but it felt worse
Like,
for
I
me
guess
on this
what
one.
age? What age? Okay, yeah.
This one felt worse for me, maybe because it's the heroes that were using stuff. I can't repeat the language because I don't want to.
That's one thing with the TMNT movie, the Mutant Mayhem. And that was a point we talked about there too.
Yeah.
Where, I took Solomon, I grew up with TMNT, so that it was like, Solly, we're going to go watch Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Yes. And we watch it, and all of a sudden, there's all of this language from Superfly. And I get out of that movie not having realized that there was going to be a bunch of language. Thankfully, in that movie, it's Superfly that's doing the language. So I get to talk with Solomon of like, hey, his words were not honoring to anyone, not his friends that were working with him. It wasn't honoring to the turtles. God tells us that we are to have no corrupting a language come out of our mouths except for that which is uplifting. And so our words matter, and what we say to others matter, and we should be building people up and encouraging them, not tearing them down. And Superfly is a bad guy, and you can see what tearing down people does. Look at what happens to Superfly. But the issue with this movie is it just kind of, with this movie, you just see it all over the place. Like,
it's so like for me, like,
thankfully nobody wants to imitate Green Lantern.
That's right,
though, because of that bowl cut, very off-putting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's like Cap in Age of Ultron calling out language. It's
language.
Him calling
Loved
out
it.
that.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he's the example that challenges even the heroes. So it works narratively. I'm not against it. It's a little bit of a reject. Another thing that's a reject. So Superman is supposed to be a beacon of goodness, do the most good. And this movie gives basically an endorsement to Superman is probably a fornicator. The way he's kissing Lois in that first scene, like up against the kitchen. And I was like, oh man. And then Lois just goes, our relationship's not even that serious. I might break up with him. You guys are probably sleeping together.
That's pretty
Not
serious kissing there.
Not the worst thing, but it's like, if you're going to make a character that's supposed to be a beacon of trying to do the most good, it just shows you that our culture doesn't even blink at premarital sex.
You remove the moral compass that made Superman what he was, especially with the Kansas parents probably raising him as a Christian. You remove that, and it's no wonder you get to that point.
Yeah.
He doesn't have that morality to stand on.
What's funny is we've spent so much time really chipping away at this movie. Largely, I think it's because I almost feel guilty about how much I love it, and I'm going to watch it. I mean, I love it. It was
a fun movie.
It made me a better man, but there's still things to go.
Yeah.
Look at it.
Well, they all have this, right? I mean, like the first Iron Man movie. Like, Tony Stark is not to be emulated. Like there's so many things in all these movies that, of course, there's lots of rejects. And I think most people listening to this podcast know that, okay, we're Christians. You can watch through the movie and probably get 99 out of 100 of the things we reject on the little ones. And we're out of time. So I appreciate you guys spending a little extra time with us on Superman. And if we missed anything, hopefully the rest of the Popcorn Theology gang out there, not its working title.
I love that title.
Oh, well, then you're in, Jam. But hopefully there's so much more we could have talked about. There's lots of cool little scenes, even things about pocket universes, some of the other characters, Metamorpho, all of the decisions, the decision-making he comes to, his little crisis of following Lex and then being shaken out of it. Lots of cool stuff to talk about. But we'll leave that to everybody else. And until next time, keep engaging movies and media from a godly perspective. And remember, not being a mindless consumer is the real punk rock.